There's a sentence Naval Ravikant once shared that quietly shattered the way many people think about work. You're not going to get rich renting out your time. It sounds simple, almost obvious, but if you really sit with it, it challenges the entire structure of modern employment. Naval Ravikant built his reputation not just as the co-founder of AngelList, but as one of the clearest thinkers on wealth creation in the digital age. His ideas spread widely after his appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, and through his widely shared essays and threads on leverage, specific knowledge, and ownership. When Naval talks about building wealth without a job, he is not saying do not work. He's saying stop thinking like an employee. The modern world trains you to follow a predictable path. Study hard, get good grades, land a stable job, climb the ladder, trade hours for salary, save carefully, retire eventually. That system produces income. But income is not wealth. Income stops when you stop working. Wealth continues working when you don't. Naval's framework revolves around one core idea: ownership and leverage. If you only sell your time, your upside is capped. There are only 24 hours in a day. Even if you're paid well, your earnings are limited by your hours and energy. But if you own equity in a business, a product, or an asset that scales, your income detaches from your time. That is leverage. Naval identifies three forms of leverage in the modern world: capital, labor, and code/media. Capital leverage is traditional. Investors deploy money to generate returns. Labor leverage is hiring people to multiply output. But code and media leverage are different. Code, software, works 24/7. Once built, it can serve millions without proportional cost increases. Media, content, writing, video can reach global audiences instantly. In the past, leverage required money or employees. Today, a single individual with a laptop can build scalable assets. That shift is revolutionary. If you create an app that millions use, your income is no longer tied to hourly effort. If you write a book that sells globally, the distribution is nearly frictionless. If you build a digital product, it can be sold repeatedly without rebuilding it each time. Naval's message is that technology has democratized leverage. But here's the catch. Not everyone can do it the same way. He emphasizes something he calls specific knowledge. Specific knowledge is knowledge you cannot be trained for. It is built through curiosity, passion, obsession, and unique combinations of skills. It is not generic. It is not easily outsourced. It is not something you learn only because the job market demands it. It is something you pursue because you're naturally drawn to it. When you combine specific knowledge with leverage and ownership, wealth becomes possible. If you deeply understand a niche problem and create a scalable solution, you're no longer competing in a crowded job market. You're building something unique. Naval also stresses the importance of equity. If you're helping build something valuable but only receiving salary, you're limiting upside. Salaries compensate for risk. Equity rewards risk. That is why early employees at successful startups often become wealthy. They own a piece of the outcome. But here's where his philosophy becomes uncomfortable. Building wealth without a job often means embracing uncertainty. Jobs offer stability, predictable paychecks, defined roles. Entrepreneurship and ownership offer volatility, unclear paths, high failure rates. Naval's argument is that the upside justifies the risk, if approached intelligently. He advises starting small, build while you learn, launch small projects, test ideas, acquire skills that compound over time. He does not advocate reckless quitting. He advocates gradually shifting from pure time-based income toward ownership-based income. If you're still following this, ask yourself something simple. If you stopped working tomorrow, how long would your income continue? For most people, the answer is immediate. It wouldn't. That is dependence on time. Naval's framework aims to break that dependence. Another key principle he discusses is permissionless leverage. In the past, to reach a global audience, you needed approval from gatekeepers, publishers, studios, corporations. Today, platforms allow direct distribution. You can write, build, or create without asking for permission. That removes barriers, but it also increases competition, so differentiation becomes crucial. Naval often says, escape competition through authenticity. When you are authentically yourself, you cannot be replaced. No one can outcompete you at being you. That sounds philosophical, but it has practical implications. If you combine your unique interests, personality, and insights into your work, you create something difficult to replicate. For example, thousands of people know programming, thousands understand marketing, but someone who uniquely combines storytelling, software engineering, and behavioral psychology might build something distinct. Specific knowledge layered with authenticity creates leverage. Now let us talk about mindset. Naval repeatedly emphasizes long-term thinking. Wealth is built slowly, then suddenly. Compounding requires patience. Whether it is skills, relationships, or investments, the early years often show little visible reward. Most people quit before compounding kicks in. They chase trends. They switch paths. They react emotionally to short-term setbacks. Naval's approach demands endurance. He also speaks about accountability. If you build under your own name, your reputation compounds alongside your work. Reputation becomes an asset. Trust becomes currency. In a digital world, reputation can travel instantly. That is powerful leverage. But it also requires integrity. You cannot fake long-term credibility. Another dimension of building wealth without a job is reducing lifestyle inflation. Naval argues that freedom is wealth. If your expenses are low and your needs are simple, you require less income to sustain yourself. That creates optionality. You can take risks. You can explore new ventures. You're not trapped by high monthly obligations. Financial independence increases strategic flexibility, and flexibility allows experimentation. Here's an interesting paradox in his thinking. He believes money solves money problems, but not happiness. So building wealth is not about luxury, it is about autonomy. Autonomy over your time, autonomy over your projects, autonomy over where you live and who you work with. Building wealth without a job is not about avoiding work. It is about choosing work aligned with your interests and ownership. He often says the goal is to work like an artist, driven by curiosity rather than obligation. When you combine curiosity with leverage and equity, wealth can emerge as a byproduct. But let us ground this in reality. Not everyone will build $1 billion startup. Not everyone will create viral content. Naval's principles apply at different scales. You might build a niche software tool. You might launch a specialized consulting practice that scales through digital products. You might create educational content tied to a unique expertise. You might invest in businesses where you understand the edge. The scale can vary. The principle remains. Detach income from hours. Own a piece of what you build. Use technology to multiply output. Think long-term. If you're still here, consider this exercise. List the skills you have that feel natural. Things you do easily that others find difficult. Then ask, can these skills be packaged, automated, or distributed at scale? Can you create something once and sell it many times? Can you solve a problem that persists over time? Can you build equity rather than just invoice hours? Naval's philosophy is not a quick-rich scheme. It is a structural shift in thinking, from employee to owner, from labor to leverage, from salary to equity, from short-term to compounding, and perhaps most importantly, from fear to experimentation. Because building wealth without a job requires stepping into uncertainty. But in a world where technology amplifies individuals, the ceiling is no longer fixed. You do not need permission. You do not need massive capital. You need specific knowledge, leverage, ownership, and patience. Let us dive a bit deeper into the mindset Naval emphasizes, because this is where most people stumble. He constantly stresses that freedom, not status or salary, is the ultimate form of wealth. A high-paying job may impress society, but if it consumes your time and limits your choices, it does not create true independence. That is why building assets that generate income without constant attention is crucial. Every piece of leverage you create, whether through code, media, or equity, buys you time, and time is the most valuable currency. Naval also highlights compounding and learning. Skills, relationships, and reputation grow exponentially if nurtured consistently. Most people underestimate how long it takes for compounding to accelerate. But if you persist, small, consistent investments in yourself and your assets multiply dramatically over time. Ultimately, Naval's strategy is less about shortcuts and more about designing your life so that you can create wealth on your own terms, without being chained to a job or a paycheck. Naval Ravikant's message is clear. In the modern economy, wealth is not reserved for those who climb ladders. It is built by those who build systems. And systems, once designed well, work for you long after you stop working for them.